Hi everyone. Let's start with the topic machine dependent assembler features. In this, we have two features. One is instruction format and addressing mode. The other one is program relocation. Before move on to this topic, let us have a recap of what we have discussed in the previous sessions. Uh, we were discussing about the assembler in the previous sessions. What is assembler? What is the role of the assembler? And what are the different functions of the assembler we have discussed? And the main function of the assembler is to create the object program. So while creating the object program, it does two passes. It performs two passes because of the forward references. Due to the forward references, we have to have the two passes in the assembler. That's what we call it as the two pass assembler. So in the pass 1 and pass 2, the two algorithms we have seen. In the first pass, the assembler is assigning address to all the statements. While performing this pass 1, it has to check for the opcode, and the assembler creates the symbol table. And in pass 2, the assembler is creating the object program. So the object program should have the header record, text record, and end record. So the structure of the object program we have discussed, and in the pass 2, assembler generates the header record, text record, and end record. While creating the text record, there might be multiple text record because single text record cannot hold all the object code, as the text record contains the object code. So in the pass 2, assembler creates the object code as well as it is generating the object program because object program contains the object code. So this is what we have discussed in the previous session, and we'll move on to the next topic, that is machine dependent assembler features. The first one is instruction format and addressing mode. So what is actually the instruction format and addressing modes? Why this particular concept come under this machine dependent assembler feature is, as we knew that in SAC and SAC-XC machine architecture, we don't see the same kind of instruction format or the same type of addressing mode we use in the SAC and SAC-XC. So there are plenty of difference we have in the SAC and SAC-XC. So based on the machine architecture, what we use, depending on that, instruction format and the addressing mode will get changed. That is the reason we say that these features are depending on the machine. So when you change from SAC to SAC-XC, definitely there is a change in instruction format as well as there is a change in the addressing mode. So addressing mode depending on the instruction format. Okay. So if you look at this program, it is an SAC-XC program. So in this program, both the programs which we saw in the SAC and this one, the operations what the program does is the same. So it is basically, it is used to read the number of bytes from the input device, and it is stored in the buffer, so for which we allocate the memory space, and from the buffer the number of bytes, that is data, which will be written into the output device, wherein we use the input device and the output device. This is what they exactly what the program does, but we are not bothering about the program here, as we concentrate only on how the conversion is taking place and how the object code is generated. That is what the main role of the assembler over here. So the source program is generated by the programmer, and which is given to the assembler. So the now assembler task of the assembler is to convert the object code, as we already discussed. Now we are going to see that if you change the program from SAC machine into SAC XC machine. So the same operation, I have already told you that the same operation only we are doing both the programs, only we are changing the machine. So because we change the machine from SAC to SAC XC, what happens with respect to object code? Okay, that is where we say that machine dependency, right? Um, so that we are going to see now. Okay, so if you look at the program in the line number 5, we have the start assembler directive, and you can see the operand as a 0. So the 0 represents the starting address. So program is starting in the location 0000. So it is represented as a hexadecimal format. From the line number 10, the actual program starts, the instruction starts from there. If you look at the line number 10, there is no much changes in the instructions. The instruction is same as similar to the SAC program, what we have discussed previously. When we start with the assembler, I was telling you how the conversion is taking place, and based on which we got the object code also. So how the assembler makes or generates the object code by following the different functions. Similar to that, here also we'll be having the object code which is generated from the instruction in source program. So look at the line number 10. So same instruction we have, first STL and RET ADR. If you look at the address of RET ADR, so which is in the line number 95, and since the starting address is starting from 0, and the RET ADR value is 0030, which is in the line number 95. And according to what we have learned, the functions of assembler, the mnemonic will be converted into the machine equivalent as you know already, STL having the value 14. And RET ADR, so for the symbol we assign the address, machine address. So the RET ADR value is 0030. So in the object code we are supposed to get the value as 140030, but in the line number 10, if you look at the object code, we saw that the object code is 17202D, which is totally different from what we have come across. Because according to the functions of the assembler, what we have got is 140030, but here this is totally different, 17202D, right? And you have to remember that in SAC we use the instruction format. There is only one instruction format, that is having the fields such as opcode, xbit and address field. Whereas in SAC-XC there are 4 different formats we have. It's not one format. There are 4 instruction formats which are available in SAC-XC. And according to the different formats, instruction format, the instruction has to be followed under any one of these instructions. Okay? So when the programmer is writing SAC-XC, so he or she should follow the instruction according to the instruction format which is followed in SAC-XC. So according to that, it might be a format 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Any one of these format to be followed. It is not the instruction format which is used in the SAC. Since this is an SAC-XC program, it has to follow according to any one of these 4 formats. So if you look at this program, some of the places we can see the format 2 or 3 or 4. how we will be making out what kind of instruction format this particular instruction is following, right? So we have to understand what is the format is being followed in each and every instruction. Why it is required? As you know that in 2-pass assembler, the first step is to assign the address to all the statements in the program. This is a very important step which I keep repeating because this is one of the most important part in assembler, to assign address to each and every instruction in a program, and based on which the object code generation will be carried out. So now if you look at the instruction, from the instruction, we can make out whether the instruction is following which kind of format. So the assembler will understand based on the symbols which is being used in the instruction. It can understand what is the instruction format. See, as a programmer, we might follow certain format. So the same format has to be interpreted by the assembler as well. So that is why, so we can understand now how the symbols will will be interpreted by the assembler and which format it is being used. Say for example, when you consider the line number 12, so there is a hash symbol you can see in the operand field. So whenever there is a hash symbol which represent, that is a immediate addressing. So in SACXC, we have already seen that I have discussed about the instruction format, and I have discussed about the addressing mode and different types of addressing mode based on the NIXBP bits. So these bits I have told you which are very important because these bits will decide what type of addressing mode we use in that particular instruction. So that is why those bits are more important, and those bits are used for target address calculation also. So from this line number 12, so you can make out that this particular instruction follows the immediate addressing. Okay. And coming to the line number 25, so again this particular instruction follows the immediate addressing as well. And if you look at the line number 15, so in the opcode field, there is a plus symbol which represent that this particular instruction follows format 4. The instruction follows format 4. So when it is a format 4, mostly it is a direct addressing, which I have told you when we were calculating about the target address. I have shown you some example wherein how the target address was calculated. So I have shown with an example for the format 3 and format 4. So in format 4, the E bit was 1. Among the NIXBP bits, the E bit was 1, and it represents the direct addressing. Since it is E bit is 1, it is following the format 4 also. So format 4 basically follows the direct addressing. So the plus symbol which represent the extended instruction format, that's nothing but the format 4, and which follows the type of addressing, which is nothing but direct addressing. And the same way we have the line number 35 also. So line number 35 also uses the format 4 and direct addressing. And coming to the line number 55 again, it's immediate addressing and it follows format 3. So immediate addressing and it follows format 3. And if you look at the 95 line number and 100 line number, you can make out this is similar to what we have discussed in the SAC machine. Same kind of instructions are being used here. So SAC machine, what logic we used to find out the address of the next instruction, same way we use here also. So there is no change in that. And if you look at the next slide, that is the continuation of the previous statements. Still this program goes on, so that is not required for us, so we will end with this. Some of the portions we exclude because it's not a part of our topic. And if you look at some of the lines like 125 and 130, in the operand field, you can make out that there is a register. Okay, in the operand field, there is a register. And if the instruction uses only the register, not the memory, then obviously those instructions are falling under the format 2. So if you take 125, 130, 132, all these, the instructions follows the format 2. Okay. And if you take the line number 133, it is format 4, and again it is following the immediate addressing. So the constant, whatever is mentioned, that will be the address actually. And in the line number 150, again it follows the format 2 because there is no memory. And 210 also format 2 because there is no memory. And in line number 225, which follows indexed because the X register is used, but you have the memory buffer is a symbol which is defined in some memory location, so we can say memory reference, and we have the index register, so we can say that it is following the indexed addressing mode. So this overall view about this program. So why I was pointing out some of the instructions, because we should understand that how their calculation is happening for assigning address. As I was telling you in the SAC machine, since there is only one instruction format in SAC machine, so it is very easy for us to understand how the address is being assigned to each and every instructions when you move forward from one instruction to the next instruction. So what is the address of the next instruction? We can easily understand because there is only one instruction format, and it occupies 3 bytes of storage. So there is no problem in calculating that one. Only thing is we should understand it is following according to the hexadecimal addressing, and we should do the calculation according to that. That is only the thing which we have to know, understand in SAC machine, whereas in SAC XC machine it's totally different. So these are the reasons why actually we are talking about this particular topic. So the topic is about the machine different features of the assembler. So especially the instruction format and addressing mode. Since we change the machine, the remaining things, the instruction format and the addressing mode with respect to the machine architecture changes, due to which there are changes, there will be some changes in the object code also. So that is what we are trying to understand, what is the changes it's happened in the object code and how it has come also. Right? Now, if you look at the address from starting from the line number 10, as you know that the starting address is 0, so obviously the 0000 will be given as a starting address for the line number 10. And if you look at the line number 12, the address given for the instruction is 0003. So why it is like that? How it has been derived? So how the 0003 has been derived from the previous instruction is, since that line number 10, which is the instruction which is in the SACXC, so it should fall under any one of the 4 instruction format. And as you know that the instruction format in SACXC will be the format 1 doesn't have the operand. So this particular instruction will not fall under the format 1. And if you look at the format 2, as you know that the format 2 has opcode and only the registers. But here we don't find any registers. We have only the memory. That's nothing but RET ADR. Since we don't find any register over here, So we can say that it is not following the format 2 also. Then if you consider the format 3 and 4, as there is no plus symbol over there, so as I already told you that plus symbol represent the format 4, since we don't have the plus symbol in that particular instruction, so it will not fall under the format 4. So the remaining one will be format 3, and suppose it is supposed to be format 3 because it is referring the memory, because if there is no memory, then it might be falling under 1 and 2. Since it is not having the plus symbol, it may not go to the direct addressing, so it is a format 3. Since it is a format 3, then obviously the number of bytes which is allocated for that instruction is 3 bytes. That is the reason that particular line, that line number 10, this particular instruction takes 3 bytes of storage. So the address of this line is 0000, and if you add 3 bytes to this, it will become 0003. That is the address of the next line. Similar to that, we can have for the next instruction, that is line number 12 also. So that line number 12 also will be taking format 3, because length and immediate addressing. Immediate addressing can go with either the format 3 or format 4. Here, why not format 4? Again, there is no plus and there is no registers, and we have the operand. So definitely it should be a format 3. Since it is a format 3, so 3 bytes will be added with the existing. So the next address would be 0006. But if you look at the 0006 is being assigned to the instruction in the line number 15, not to the line number 13. Why it is so is, in the line number 13, we have an assembly directive called base. Base is an assembly directive which is used to inform the assembler that to the base register we assign the value of length. So to inform that, to provide the information, we have this assembly directive and it won't take any memory. That's the reason we are not assigning address to this line 13. Instead, it has been assigned to the line number 15. And as you could see in the line number 15, there is a plus symbol, so which represent that it's a format 4. And obviously it is following the direct addressing also. Okay. And since it is a format 4, so the 4 byte, it will take 4 bytes. So 4 bytes to be added with the existing one. So we have already 0006. With that, we have to add 4. So it will become 10. Since it is hexadecimal, after 9, the 10 will be represented by A. So that's how in the line number 20, we have the address 000A. Similar to this, for each and every instruction, we follow the same fashion, whether it is a format 3 or format 4 or format 2 or format 1, we have to find out. Okay, so we can understand. So in this fashion, the assembler will be assigning address to each and every instruction in the program. So if you could see the line number 105, the same logic we used in the SAC also. This is a byte 4096. The maximum limit is 1000. The 1000 will be added with the existing one. So in the next address will be 1036. So that is given to the line number 125. Line number 125. So if you could see the line number 125, we have the instruction clear X. So there is no memory reference, so obviously it is falling under the format 2. So since it takes, it follows format 2, it takes 2 bytes. So 1036 is the address for the line number 125. And if you add 2 bytes to that, it will become 1038. That is the address for the line number 130. The same thing will be followed for 130, 132, and so on. So these are the instruction which follows the format 2. And similar to that, we can have in the line number 150 also same way, the COMPR, A, comma, SA and SR2 registers. So it follows the format 2. And if you look at the line number 185, similar to the SAC, again we follow the same way of giving the address to that instructions. So 105C is the address for the client. Since it takes only 1 byte, the next address will be 105D, which is in the line number 210. This is how we can get to know the address of each and every instruction. So this is the way by which the assembler assigns the address to all the statements in the program. Hope this is been understood. So this is one way, one step we have come across in the assembler. So that is like a pass one we have done, which is used to assign the address. The next step is to create or generate the object code. So during the generation of object code, we have to follow the, we have to understand the instruction format in SACXC. So if it is an SAC machine, very simple way, simple process, because there is only one instructions which can be easily understood. Whereas here we have 4 different formats. So the object code generation, the procedure of that is same, but when you represent the object code in different format, that will be different. So that is what exactly we can see the difference in the object code as compared with the SAC machine. So we will see one by one how exactly the object code is being formed. So let me give you some examples. Right. So here we can see that. So the line number 10, STL RET ADR. So already have told that this STL RET ADR follows format 4. So the reason why it is format 4, why it is format 3, the reason why it is not format 1, 2 or 4, we have already discussed. So it is falling under the instruction format 3. And as you could see the instruction format 3, which is depicted here, the opcode will take 6 bits, and we have the address or the displacement field, and we have the NIXPP bits. Okay, so using these values, using these columns, how we are going to represent, how the assembler generates the object code and how it is able to fit the values inside the instruction format. That is what exactly we are going to see, that we'll see in the next session.